One of the big issues that people were talking tonight was the national health care bill that's being debated. The Club for Growth has a petition.
I just signed it. I was among the first, after we saw that, I forget the first two that signed it, but we jumped on as soon as we saw it, got it on the blog just a couple days ago. Very proud to sign the pledge to say that when elected, we will do everything we can to repeal whatever act is passed in this Congress.
What ideas do you have to solve health care if you don't support the one that's being considered now?
Well, I do have some specific ideas, but they're not really my ideas. They are the ideas of the founders of this country and the framers of the Constitution. And the answer to our problems with health care, it's right there in the Constitution, and it's very simple. Localize it. Return all of the health care programs that people have come to rely on at the federal level to the states. Reintroduce market forces and competition, and repeal the HMO Act of 1973, which creates entities and insurance companies that would never exist in a free market. The answer is not more government intervention, but less. But we also have to be honest that where we have come today is not because of the free market. Where we are today with the problems that we are facing in the healthcare industry and being able to deliver services to people that really need them is because of government intervention in the medical industry. And we can reduce that drastically. You can't pull the rug out from underneath anybody, and I want to make sure that we don't do that in weaning ourselves off these programs. But what we can do to take a huge step in that direction is to immediately honor the Constitution and make sure the federal government has nothing to do with health care.
You were talking about market forces. Would you support insurance being allowed to be sold across state lines?
Well, the question is, do I support the government stopping insurance companies from doing what they need to do to serve their customers? Absolutely not. So if the goal is to have insurance across state lines, then I think that should be a product of the free market. I think we should get the government out of the way and remove any potential restrictions to doing that. So absolutely. But the answer isn't to say, let's have the government decide what the policy is. The answer is to say, let's have the people and the consumers decide what the policy is. And that's how a free market's supposed to work for the most effective distribution of goods and services. And if I may, we have to really be honest that in this country, we don't have a free market. We don't have a capitalist system anymore. When you have a central bank that has the ability to print money out of thin air, and we have the host of corrupt corporations that Thomas Jefferson predicted would spring up around any central bank, you don't have a free market anymore. When you have bailouts of financial institutions and spending bills in the guise of stimulus bills, you don't have a free market anymore. And in a real free market, if you want to make money, you have to do so by serving people, by giving them the goods and services that they want to consume. And what we have allowed to happen through corruption of our federal government is we've made it more efficient for corporations to get government handouts than to actually serve people. And when people take back the government and demand that it not do anything that is outside the scope of the Constitution, then we can get back to having a true free market, real competition, and companies and small businesses that have the ability to meet real human needs based on what they want to buy in the market.
It's certainly more than just the government and free market. You're not a lawyer, but I imagine that you would support tort reform.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Tort reform is a huge one. When we have given rise to a cottage industry of lawyers whose sole purpose is to use the government to get money out of other people.
Speaking of money, you prefer that people donate to your campaign in silver and gold. Why?
Well, because the dollar loses value every single day, and there is nothing that gives the U.S. dollar any value other than a shared illusion and wishful thinking. It's not backed by gold or silver. It's not backed by any commodity, as our founders intended, as is specifically an enumerated power of the Congress in the Constitution to coin money out of gold and silver. And the Federal Reserve that is responsible for this was promised to stabilize the value of the dollar when it was instituted in 1913. But the reality of history is that it's caused the dollar to lose about 97% of its value. Inflation is a tax, and the power to tax is the power to destroy. And the Federal Reserve, frankly, is destroying our economy. But we also accept donations in Federal Reserve notes. So if people want to donate dollars, we'll put those to good use. If they want us to convert those to gold and silver so that we can have them for media buys later on in the campaign when they're worth more, we can do that as well.
So we talked a little bit about the sentiment that you heard here tonight. What is the sentiment you're hearing in the 3rd Congressional District about your campaign?
Well, what I've learned from traveling around the district is that the grassroots base of both parties are so grossly misrepresented by their national leadership that we have more in common with each other than anyone in Washington. And it seems that all Americans want the rule of law to be honored. They want states' rights to be honored. They want communities to be empowered. They want a responsible government, and we don't have that right now for the simple fact that we haven't been following the Constitution. So a big theme in this campaign is localism, and that's really been bringing people together, because when you can speak to those common values, you can bring people together around a campaign, and that's what we're doing. So 10th Amendment, states' rights, Bill of Rights, individual rights, those are things that are resonating across the board from people of all political ideologies that know that our government is out of control and are starting to wake up to the fundamental reality that we have a government that behaves like it owns us rather than serves us.
So the fourth quarter fundraising reports are going to be due the end of this month. Give us a hint about if you're meeting your expectations and how much you've raised.
We're not, actually, and it's very sad to see that Americans aren't as able to be engaged in the political process because the economy is suffering so bad. And so a lot of our donations, like I said, because when you have a strict constitutionalist platform, there's not a lot of special interests or lobbyists lining up to get behind this campaign with any kind of funding, because I'm not offering anybody any promises or bailouts or handouts. And so we're really dependent on the grassroots support. And while our fundraising has suffered along with the economy, our volunteer base is growing incredibly, and they're doing a great job spreading this message within the district.